Now recording.
Okay, welcome everybody. So I'm going to be talking about uh, the IPA and phonology. So uh, we'll see what that means as we go forward, but that's a branch within descriptive linguistics. So just to give some context around what we're actually going to learn, um, descriptive linguistics, we're talking about how a language is made, and usually that can be broken up into a number of subfields. And they roughly have to do with the sounds of the language, then the grammar, which is constructed using those sounds, and then the meaning that means, which is then transmitted through the language. So phonetics and phonology are somewhat different, and I'm kind of going to talk about both of them, I guess, today. This was originally only supposed to be about the IPA, but I think you can't really understand it without uh, knowing what those are. So phonetics, first of all, is the study of phones, and not this kind of phone. Study of speech sounds. So, like a phone is like a sound that you make with your mouth, and phonetics usually cares about how the speech sound is produced, how we like can determine what speech sound someone is saying when we hear it, and like what are the acoustic properties of a certain sound, things like that. So, um, you can look at a consonant and like discuss where it's being made in the mouth, how it's being made in the mouth, and basically the way that airflow is moving. So um, there are a lot of other ways that consonants can differ from each other, especially like depending on your language. But like these are the three that matter the most, at least in English, and they're also very common like points of where you would have consonants change in different languages too. But this is not an exhaustive list, is what I mean to say by that. So this is an example of places of articulation, at least in the case of English. So in English, the places of articulation of the mouth are divided in like up into these different categories. So you can have like bilabial consonants, which means you're using two lips, right? Bi and labial. So that's like a ba or a ma, right? Then you can have labiodental consonants. So that is, as it sounds, your lip is touching your tooth. So fa or va, right? And maybe it's not touching, but it's at least getting close. Really, we care about where the air is being restricted inside of your mouth. Losing connection to the stream. Uh oh. Did the Can you hear me fine? Is it just the video?
Audio is okay,
Okay.
but I have no video.
Oh. Let's try that again. How long ago did it cut out? Was it recent? How's that?
Yeah, it started dropping out like 15 seconds ago.
I'll try sharing the tab instead of the window. Is it? Can you see that?
Yes.
Is this where you lost me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So depends on where the sound is made. That's what the place of articulation is. So there's a whole bunch of these, and they're basically just referring to different places inside of the mouth. One thing that I'll point out here, although we'll go into much greater depth in the phonology section, is that this is how English divides up the places of articulation of the mouth. So you can analyze the exact phonetic, like precisely where a person would say this sound. However, this is starting to bleed into phonology, because what this graph is showing is specifically the English conceptualization of how these sounds are organized. But we'll talk about that later. So you can imagine, when you say some of these sounds, your tongue is going to be in a certain place, and that's where we restrict the airflow. And I didn't mention this explicitly, but restricting the airflow is the difference between a consonant and a vowel. So, like, the fact that we are making a consonant implies that there is a restriction of airflow happening somewhere within the mouth, and that's what the place of articulation is. So linguadental would be like tha, right? Your tongue is touching your teeth. Lingua alveolar. Usually you would just say alveolar. I don't think many people usually say lingua alveolar because that sort of implies there's something else that could touch the top of your mouth. Um, but that's the ridge in front of your in like sorry right behind your teeth. So like ta or da, right? That's alveolar. Oh, also by the way, Mega is an actual linguist. I'm just a wannabe, so he should hopefully keep me honest throughout this talk. um, but yeah, feel free to chime in. I'm hoping that he can give us some other crazy examples when I have crazy examples of phonemes. Okay, lingua palatal is like on the palate, on the top of the mouth, like this. So like sh, for example, your tongue is touching the top of your mouth um, in the center. Lingua alveolar, just go further back basically. And once again, you would usually just say palatal or alveolar. I feel like I don't usually ever hear anyone say lingua palatal because like what else can touch your palate other than your tongue? I'm not really sure. And then glottal is like inside the throat. Your glottis is the anatomical part. So usually these are just named after like anatomy parts like anatomically of the vocal tract. Okay, but as I've said, this is in English, right? We've divided this up according to English. However, you don't have to follow the lines of English, so we can do some other fun stuff. And also, if you don't mind, I'd like everybody to unmute. I think this would be super cool if we could have everyone saying ridiculous sounds and sounding like an idiot. So if you're down, uh, if you can, please turn off your mute and do the best that you can at touching your tongue uh, to your uvula and saying ka ka, not ka, but rather ka. Oh, I don't hear Mega.
Gaw?
Ka?
Ka ka. Yeah, I think Zai
Ka.
almost got it.
Ka.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Ka.
Ka. Yeah.
Gaw?
I think. Yeah, I think a couple of you are getting it pretty much on point. Ka. So, this is, for example, present in a number of languages. Quechua is an example. Arabic is an example. So even if you go even further back into your throat, so to speak, you can have a pharyngeal consonant, which is between the glottis and like the uvula. So, for example, ha ha. Any takers? Anybody want to try it? Ha. It's not a
Like
ha. It's not.
ha. Ha. Ha.
I think
Ha.
that might be alveolar. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe so ha ha. It should kind of come from the throat. The restriction in air should come from the throat, and you shouldn't feel any air escape between your tongue and the like the back of the top of your mouth. So ha ha ha.
Ha. Ha. Ha. Ha.
I will say something also is that Discord noise suppression is like kind of astonishingly annoying when it comes to representing non-European sounds. Some of my colleagues like to say that it's basically racist noise suppression. So when it comes to some of these, sounds that are not, I don't know, these more uncommon sounds, then we're definitely going to get a lot of stuff lost in the compression, unfortunately.
Thank you. I don't know anything about Discord noise compression. I'm curious to see. That would be interesting. Do you think it like cuts it off entirely, or is it like
It's if sounds are. I've experienced this both with like clicks and ejectives when you have
Okay.
these kind of really loud sounds that don't kind of fit into the lower acoustic noise profile of English.
Gotcha.
And there's certain like like I think the difference between a velar and a uvular, for example, in terms of a fricative, like those are pretty similar in terms of airstream. You're gonna have some issues there. So I don't, not to discourage anyone, but I think that if we're grading people, that is just something we should keep in mind.
Yep.
Okay, I turned off this noise suppression.
Yeah, that
Sweet. You can give it another try if you want to. I don't know. I could also be wrong. To be clear, I don't actually speak any languages that I'm aware of that yeah, I can't think of any that actually distinguish between like a uvular place of articulation for any consonant and a pharyngeal one, and like, for example, like an alveolar one. So I also don't have the ears to be judging you very well necessarily. You don't, yeah. So for example, there's a difference between ha and ha. The latter is present in Arabic, or at least my non-native understanding of Arabic. So yeah, so your airstream is being blocked not by your glottis, which is what would be blocking airflow, or at least restricting airflow in the case of ha, the English H, right? That is a glottal fricative, ha, as opposed to a pharyngeal one, which is like ha. Anyway, so we did talk about palatals, although I think depending on your analysis of English, I want to say I've seen it called other things. Does that ring true to you, Mega? Or is palatal the usual
tough
word?
thing is sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Is Shah, is that, do you call that a palatal?
So I think that the tough thing here is that these are very unstable sounds. Like when you have to have a consonant that's a true palatal, where you're putting your tongue like really on the hard palate,
Mm-hmm.
it's very unstable. You usually find that as like an intermediate form. So for example, when Latin targets C's before E's, so ge, ki into se, si, the, fi, she, she, depending on your Romance language of choice. That was probably an intermediate form. But clearly it turned into a whole bunch of different things. There's like 5 different sounds depending on the language, Romance, like descendant of Latin, that you can find in terms of the result of this sound. So I think that it's really up to you, honestly, because these sounds are just kind of pretty unstable, sometimes overlap with other sounds, because you're putting your whole tongue body up there. So yeah, you can play very loosey goosey with that sort of stuff. I would say. I don't know if that makes you feel better.
Okay, well, yeah. So like when I wrote this, I was thinking of like the Spanish, like ya is a good example of something that's like a palatal in Spanish that you don't see in English. So your tongue isn't like making really a very firm connection with the soft palate up at the roof of your mouth. I've seen that analyzed different ways depending on your language, but in the case of Spanish, your tongue is making a long section of.
I think that one's legit.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
If you want that in English, actually, if there's certain accents, if you've ever heard Donald Trump curse his soul and everything else with him, say the word billion or million, he says it like billion, million.
Billion. Oh yeah. Well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can hear it. So like billion. Yeah, that is, your tongue's making the same shape as it would for the Spanish yeah sound. Dental labial. So
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry. Try a few. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds good. That sounds good. Anybody else? Anyone brave enough? No? Come on. Okay, we gotta this is a rule now. You have to unmute. If you're able, you must unmute. Yeah.
Gyarados.
Yeah. One more time? Gyarados.
Yeah. Gyarados.
Yeah. Try really emphasizing it like yeah.
Yeah. That's I think that's like, I think I'm doing it. Yeah.
I think you are. I think you are too. Although it is definitely, I don't know. It feels halfway between the English one and this Spanish one, to me at least. But I don't know. Anyway, dental labials. So we talked about labiodentals, which is like you're saying fa, right? Your top teeth is touching your bottom lip. In Greenlandic, there's what's called a dentolabial. So they instead of having fa, they have fa, which is my top lip touching my bottom teeth. Anybody want to give that one a shot? Fa, fa, fa. It sounds pretty similar to me.
Okay, so the normal F is like fa,
Yeah,
and if I do
fa.
it opposite way, fa, fa,
Fa.
fa,
Fa. Yeah, there you go.
fa. Yeah.
Not that I can tell the difference. I don't know if. In fact, I should have looked
Fa.
up.
I've never heard of this one.
I should have looked up whether or not that is actually phonemically distinguished with the normal fa. I can't imagine it is, because they sound to me very, very similar. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So you're probably getting it right, but I can't even tell the difference, to be honest with you. There are a lot of languages that distinguish within this. Like, for example, English has like the ta in like the alveolar ta, which is like sort of at the front of your mouth. There's a lot of languages which sort of have a similar sounding, or at least to an English speaker's ears, a similar sounding phoneme. But you move it forward a bit onto your teeth, or backwards a bit into the palate. So, for example, like many Indian languages would distinguish between ta, my tongue there touching my teeth, versus ta, which is basically the English one, and ta, which is my tongue curling backwards, such as that almost the bottom of it touches the top of my mouth. That's a very common trend in India, for example. So like ta, or trying to think of another example. Could you mute? Thank you. So yeah, ta or da or things like that. Anyone want to try those? Ta, ta, da.
I mean, of course, so dental, more
Ta,
da,
yeah.
and then just ta. And then retroflex, it's like da, ga, something like
Da,
that.
da,
Ga,
da, da. It's so your
ga,
tongue
ga,
is
ga.
like, it should be the bottom of the tip of your tongue. Should be touching the top of your
Oh,
mouth.
right. Ga,
Da, da, da.
ga, ga, ga. Right. Ga, ga. Hmm.
Are you saying ka? Wait. Try one more time. So
No,
like
it was ta.
da,
Yeah.
da, da.
Ta, da, 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 da.
There you go. Yeah, that sounded about right. So you can have laterals as well, which is where the airflow, instead of being restricted, like often what happens is sort of the stream of air is like shrunk down, and there's only a small area through which air can pass. Lateral is like sort of the opposite, where instead airflow is pushed to one side instead of being reduced to sort of the center of the vocal tract. So like, for example, if I say la, 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 maybe that's a bad example. If I say fa, the hole made by my lips is made smaller and also kind of centralizes a bit. But in a lateral, it's the opposite thing that's happening. So lateral, this lateral la is like la, la, la. The air is going around my tongue. This is big in Nahuatl. It has this final TL sound in a lot of words, which is tla, tla, tla. But you can hear sort of there's a slight difference in the air going around the L, and basically like going around my tongue more so than it usually would go over, for example. In Arabic, there's actually this is phonemically different only when saying like Allah, like the name of God. In all other cases, they would use a non-lateral L. Okay, this is a lot of examples. I maybe should have put less examples, but glottal. We talked about glottal, but you can also this is a glottal stop. Skip that one. Forget about that. A bunch of West African languages have stops that are produced in two places at the same time. So ba, I have trouble with these, but like ba is me attempting to say a K and a P. Basically, you're releasing air from both places simultaneously. Any takers? Anybody want to try a ba? Ba.
Ba 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 ba
Ba. Yeah, probably.
ba.
Pa.
That sounds about right.
Pa. Pa.
Ba ba.
Ah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so that's place of articulation. Manner of articulation also matters. So that's sort of like how you're restricting the airflow as opposed to where it's happening. So you can have stops, which are related to plosives. You can see it analyzed in different ways. Plosives usually means that there's no air going through, and then air suddenly starts to go through. So, for example, the T in top, like the air is stopped at my tongue when I say top, and then it suddenly gets all released. That's a plosive. Stop. Usually they're used synonymously, but then there are some cases in which you want to emphasize that it's the airflow stops at that point as opposed to get like airflow then gets released. So that's a stop. You can have Mega, remind me what the difference is between a sibilant and a fricative. I forgot.
Sibilant is a special kind of fricative or affricate where
Okay.
With a sibilant. So maybe you want to explain what fricative and affricate is.
Yeah, so a fricative involves like a fricative will be where you shrink the space for air to flow through a lot, but not remove it entirely. So for example, fa, there's still airflow coming through, like throughout the duration of the production of the sound. When I say fa, right, you can sustain it. That's another way of thinking it. Like I can just continuously say an F. So that's what a fricative is. An affricate involves a stop that then releases into a fricative. So like using the F example in German, there's pf, pf is a sound p. It's written pf. So like I don't have any good examples, but that would be an affricate. The one that's written here is ch. So that is like I'm making a T sound and then it releases into a sh sound. So that's a ch. That's an affricate. So what makes a sibilant different? Mega?
So I'm being a little. Can you hear me?
What's that?
Hello.
Yes.
So it's a special kind of fricative where you're channeling air into the back of your teeth. So if you think about where you're kind of pointing the air that you're driving through your mouth, if it goes and it hits the back of your front teeth, that's going to be a sibilant. And it has a special category because they create these really high pitched sounds and sh and s and ch. Those do a lot of interesting things as a kind of category that people like to talk about, and that's why they're set apart. So, for example, in English, S is unique in that you can put it before two other consonants at the start of a syllable. So, scratch, that starts with three consonants. S is the only one that you can put at the very stop. They have these, they're almost vowel-like because they're so intense, and that intensity comes from this channeling into the back of the teeth.
Gotcha. Is it correct in that case to analyze this as a manner of articulation? Because it sounds like there's a lot of dependence on the place being the back of the teeth. It sounds like the answer is probably still yes, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, because what you, and this is, actually it's not the most important thing, but I would say yes because there's a lot of languages where you have something that is articulated at the same place, but as a sibilant or not a sibilant. So, for example, Basque is a good example of this, where you have two S sounds, basically. These are written as S or Z. They both will, and I'm sure that I can't pronounce them differently enough for you all, but they're both pronounced in the place of an S, you put your tongue, up to your alveolar region, do a fricative, so sa. But the tip of the tongue is oriented such that either it faces up or faces forward. And if it faces forward, then that of course means that the air is going to project forwards into the tooth, making it a sibilant. But if it's facing up, it's going to kind of get absorbed by your fleshy mass instead of the tooth, and that creates a different quality. So it's something like sa versus sha. So in that case, it's the same place of articulation, but the manner has been modulated.
Okay, I'll give that a shot. So sa as the sibilant versus sa. I'm probably not doing that right.
Yeah.
I don't know. sa versus sa.
My understanding, halfway between halfway between a retroflex and a dental, like you're not going all the way back. You're not going all the way back over.
Gotcha.
S working almost like a vowel is kind of interesting. Like I was instantly thinking about the word like PSST, st, you know, like
yeah.
that kind of sounds like, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're curious, since I assume we have people with some physics interests in this chat, the like acoustic phonetic reason is that 4,000 hertz. If you look at it on a spectrogram, you can see a sibilant because they have these bands of dark energy really high up, and that's what makes them kind of sound high pitched.
High frequency sounds. How does that make it into a vowel though? Are you saying the high frequency, like the presence of high frequency noise makes it vowel like?
It makes it acoustically distinct, which then sometimes makes it behave like a vowel. Like in the same way that you can you have high frequency energy that is consistently produced in a vowel. In this case, it's like harmonics in your vocal tract. This kind of independent resonance, because a lot of consonants, right, they work by modifying existing resonance.
Right.
Like the difference between stops or their impact on vowels, it chases the vowel. Whereas if you have a sibilant on its own, you can hear that independent of any vowel next to it.
Gotcha. That's cool. Yeah, I've never really stopped to think about psst. Nasals involve stopping the...
Yeah, it's a great example.
It is a great example. Yeah. So for a nasal, you can... you can make the air, instead of stopping it entirely, you can make the air go through your nose. So that's like, for example, what's going on in ma na la or ma na nga. The airflow is still happening, but it's just going through your nose. So you can try like plugging your nose and saying like, and you'll very quickly like fail to breathe out. Like if you try and say like an N while your nose is plugged.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can only sustain it for like a half a second, and then your nose fills up. And we already talked about laterals. Okay. People are typing. I'll give it a second. If you touch the bridge of your nose while making a nasal, you can feel it. You can feel it vibrate. Oh, I do feel it vibrate. Let me contrast that with yeah, I definitely don't. Or yeah, still don't. Huh. That's cool. Can we define new consonants by closing the nose? Yeah, we can make a what would you call it? Unaspirated nasal? I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, we could you just have to quickly pinch your nose while you're making the sound. Yeah, pinched nasal. Yeah, that's better. Bilabionasal. What is? How are we getting that? Two lips in your nose? Maybe like, if I hear bilabionasal, what I think of is like airflow simultaneously going through the lips and the nose, which you can probably do. Like, Using the nose as lips. Ah. I don't know about that. Okay. So that's manner of articulation. Sorry, that's English manners of articulation. There are other languages with interesting stuff going on there. For example, aspiration. So English has non-phonemic aspiration, but there are a lot of languages, such as Hindi, for example, that have like a difference between ta and sorry. Let me do that again. Ta and ta. So you can put your hand in front of your mouth, and like just like put your hand right in front of your mouth so that you can feel yourself breathing out, and you just say the difference between ta, ta, and ta, 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 and you can feel the airflow coming out between the two. English does have differences in aspiration, and we'll actually talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, that's one example. You can have implosive consonants. So Swahili and Vietnamese have sounds such as ba and da, where the airflow briefly, you're not producing it necessarily while you're breathing in, but air rushes into your mouth as you're producing the consonant, as opposed to normally airflow is leaving your mouth and the airflow is stopped with higher pressure inside of your vocal tract compared to the outside, whereas this is the opposite. Anybody want to try those? Aspirated stops or implosives? Ba. I want to hear a ba.
Ba.
Okay.
Ba.
There you go. Yeah. Good.
Ba.
Ba, 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 ba. Ba, da. Yeah, that sounded great. Mega mentioned earlier.
Da.
What was that? Da, da? Are you trying to?
I tried. It wasn't very good.
It's tough. Yeah, a lot of this takes like practice. I've probably mumbled these to myself in the shower a bajillion times.
Could you describe the implosive again and like how the airflow works? Because
So like,
it
usually,
sounds like
yeah,
a bastardized version of the like the sound from like Hokkien that I do.
mba as in like an MB, like a.
Yeah, it's kind of like an MB,
Okay,
but
yeah,
a slight nasal release.
yeah. No, it's different from that. So,
Okay.
possibly. I mean, I don't know anything about Hokkien, but I would. My guess would be it would be different. So an implosive involves airflow entering your mouth during the production of the sound, because when you have a stop, when you're like when the airflow is completely blocked, there's usually a pressure gradient that builds up between inside your vocal cords inside your vocal tract and outside, like the outside world, and like the airflow then suddenly rushes through once it's released. So that's how you make like a ta ta. The airflow very briefly jumps out of your mouth somewhat quickly, but in an implosive you're doing the opposite direction. The pressure gradient is opposite. So
Okay.
so ba
Yeah,
ba
sorry.
ba. I'm doing it very extremely exaggerated now, so it might sound goofy at this point, but like ba ba.
So you're kind of breathing in, right?
You're not breathing in. You're not breathing in necessarily. Well, I don't think so. Ba ba ba. Maybe you could, but I think the real defining feature is that you're controlling the pressure inside of your mouth as opposed to using your lungs to pull air one way or the other.
Yeah,
So
if you make a kissing sound like mwah, and you like kind of pull air in, that's an implosive, right? Mwah, like that.
Moi moi moi.
Like when you, but not just mwah, but when like making an actual kissing sound, mwah, like that.
Mwah, mwah. Oh yeah, like mwah, mwah. Maybe that's an example of Discord sound stuff getting in the way, because if you were doing the kissy lip sound, I didn't hear it.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
possibly.
Mwah.
Mwah, mwah.
Mwah.
Yeah. So yeah, but yes, you can definitely feel the air going in. That's a great example. Okay, so those are implosives. ejectives are when hold on. So for example, like uh uh you simultaneously Mega, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think you simultaneously are building up airflow with your glottis and then releasing it at the same time that you release the stop. Is that okay? Sweet. So like, anybody want to try this? It sounds like you're kind of beatboxing. Say that one more time.
Yeah, I was gonna say beatbox.
Okay, yeah. So like,
Does that even go through?
I'm pretty sure it's not coming through. That's sad. Yeah, I definitely hear the ejective sound kind of just getting cut out entirely. Maybe mine is when you're hearing it. I don't know. Mega, does that come across to you?
Yeah, it doesn't entirely come through. This is a particularly vulnerable sound because it has, I don't know, it's very loud. It goes from 0 to 100 in terms of noise, which is exactly the kind of pop that noise suppression doesn't want.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I hope maybe you can try and guess what that might sound like, but shoot, that's unfortunate.
It's like what you do when you make a TikTok sound, right? TikTok clock sound.
TikTok.
Like you know. I can't even. I don't know how to explain it because it doesn't go through. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Am I doing it right if like air flows into my mouth but not through it?
You mean in from your lungs, like it's entering your mouth from your lungs? I mean, like if I try to close my mouth and say, like I can kind of half do it, but I'm doing it with my hand in front of my mouth. You might be describing what it is. I'm not entirely. The airflow should be more explosive when entering your mouth than when coming out, but I think there's probably still air coming out. But that's I'm going on vibes here. I don't know anything about the actual like phonetic analysis of ejectives. So then clicks are like I don't know if that's coming through at all, but or like that would be a kissy sound, like a that's a click.
Yeah, none of them are coming through, and none of mine are
Oh
coming through
no,
either.
that sucks. You can't hear that at all?
I heard that.
That's an example of a click. But some of the much higher pitched ones might not be coming through at all. So like that's the kissy sound. It might not be audible. Oh no. Discord's ruining my talk. Yeah, those are some interesting ones. Pharyngealization, I'm not even going to try this one. I've tried this a million times and I can't make it sound right, so I'm skipping that. Phonation. So you can voice or not voice the same sound and it's produced differently. So what that means specifically is if your vocal cords are flapping, and really more specifically, at what point in the onset of the consonant after the vowel is released, when that starts happening, or if it starts happening at all. So so for example, ta and da, in the case of English, the vocal cords are vibrating during the production of the d, the da, like while the actual stop is like being produced with the tongue. So a cool way of feeling this is like you can actually put your hand on your Adam's apple if you have one, or just on your throat in the same spot, and say ta, or just say t t t, or duh duh duh, and you'll feel the difference. Like between which one you say, you'll be able to feel it either vibrate or not. Maybe a better example would be not a stop if you're trying to feel it, but you can just say s as an S versus z as a Z, and you can feel it vibrating versus not vibrating. Other than the vibration.
Yeah, I'd like to nitpick.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I think that and we'll get into this with phonology, but English initial stops, most of them, the voiced one tends to be devoiced, and we'll get into all that. But basically, I think that maybe the more helpful example is to, like you were bringing up with fricatives. So
Yeah.
if you put them between a vowel, so you say asa, asa versus azza, azza, then between the vowels, you can put your hand on your throat and you can feel whether it's cutting out or not cutting out. So because you put two vowels between them, then that gives you a better example that it's like it's been interrupted.
Right.
It's not just that you've kind of started talking and you forgot to start speaking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, phonation is much easier to understand in the context of vowels, but we're doing consonants first. Yeah, so yeah, I think the fricative is a good example, like f versus v or s versus z. You can tell the difference between when your throat is vibrating or not. And yeah, it will come. I'm maybe was your nitpick just about like discussion of onset of like I'm not sure about the English analysis of this, but like one thing that I can bring up anecdotally is like in Mandarin Chinese, there's also a distinction between in the case of Chinese, it's usually analyzed as an aspiration, like a difference in aspiration between what would be the Chinese T and D sound, if you could call them that. But in reality, one is always voiced and one is always not voiced, but it's because but that's sort of coincidental and secondary to the aspiration, but it also has to do with the onset of the voicing when it begins.
Yeah, my nitpick was not necessarily about like analysis, or it's just kind of as a I think that there are times
Just an easier way to
like as an example to start out with.
Yeah.
It might get you like people confused if they do have a really robust like initial devoicing, because there's some variation on that. So I think that like I remember one time I was trying to learn a sound and they were giving an example that I didn't understand because it was using a like dialectal feature that I didn't have.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I think that the ones it was just a more robust example. Basically.
Yeah. That is I definitely agree. It's hard to tell where the voicing begins in T versus D, like after the sound ends and when a vowel begins, or at the beginning when the previous vowel ends and the stop begins. Anyway, you could also have other crazy ones, and I've long since forgotten what some of these sound like, but like yawny voice, I'll try it, but I think it's like this, like you're yawning and you try to say something. There are languages which analyze that as a different type of phonation, like in juxtaposition to voiced or voiceless voicing. And there's also creaky voice, which is like when you're talking like this, and it's called vocal fry sometimes, but the phonological term, as far as I'm aware, is creaky voice. So you can be speaking with creaky voice. I hope you can hear me talk, but can you hear that? It's sort of like when you say I think that's a pretty good example. Okay, I'm glad that's coming through. Breathy voice. I forget what breathy voice is like. Actually, I might have gotten yawny and breathy voices mixed up. You can look these up, but yeah, I'll probably screw them up anyways. A lot of Nilotic languages like go up the Nile from Egypt into Sudan. That's the geographical region. Those are like a lot of languages in that geographical area have a lot of voice distinctions. Whispering is voiceless. So if I say, if I just whisper to you, you'll notice that there's actually no way to differentiate the T and a T. They're basically the same. Did that come through? I hope that came through. T's, your sa and your za. There's no way to say like C versus Z or sa versus za or fa versus va. It all gets clumped together. And in theory, I imagine we're just distinguishing everything based on context. But yeah, you're just not voicing anything. I'll start my ASMR channel. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, I should probably speed up because this is like, it's already been almost an hour and we're only through the consonants. So we've defined these three things: place of articulation, manner of articulation, and phonation. So if I say a voiced velar nasal, you should hopefully now be able to come up with an idea of what that might mean. Anybody want to try? What does that sound? Yeah, that's very quiet, but I think you're getting it right. Na as in the in penguin, or I'm trying to think of a better example. Ding, like the sound of a ding. So that's written like this in the IPA. Oops, I fucked this up and put the slides in opposite order. You saw the answer there for a second, probably, but voiceless alveolar affricate, what would that be? Any guesses? Cha. I think that's right. Oh wait, no. No, you're right. I think I got it wrong. I think ta. Are you right? Wait, cha. No, I think it is ta. Yeah, I think it is ta. Cha would be probably, you'd call it either like palatal or postalveolar. Yeah, postalveolar. That was the word that I was looking for earlier in that big diagram of all these. Postalveolar is what I usually hear this written as in the context of English phonology. But yeah, okay. Good. Yeah, ta. It would be ta, but you almost got it right, I think. So just as a recap, voiceless. It's not za. That would be voiced. Alveolar is the place of articulation, so it's happening on the alveolar ridge, which is like the place that your tongue would touch your like right behind your teeth, and it's an affricate, meaning the airflow is stopped and then let go through. So ta. Okay, and then vowels. So I'll probably speed run vowels a little bit more. So the two, I guess, primary distinguishing features of vowels is like defined by the location of your tongue. So you'll usually see a chart like this, where you can write all of the vowels of a language, say, in one big chart, and that represents, like, you imagine that that chart is inside of someone's mouth like this, and it just represents where their tongue is positioned while they're producing the vowel. So I probably should have mentioned this already, but as I said earlier, a consonant is stopping air, but a vowel is not. That's the idea here, is that airflow is not really restricted. You might change the way that the inside of your vocal tract resonates. So you'll produce overtones in different ranges when you make a vowel inside of your mouth. And that is changed by the geometry of where your tongue is located, but you're not really seriously restricting airflow in any way. So the question of where your tongue is positioned is what defines how that happens. And that's what the two axes here are height and backness. So you can have a front vowel versus a back vowel. So for example, E versus U, in both cases, your tongue is rather high up in your mouth, but it's just forward versus backward. It's more close to your lips versus back in the back of your mouth. Somebody give me some E's and Oo's. Any E, U, yeah, good. Then you can put it in at the bottom of your mouth and say ah. Ah is very, very front and low. So e, u, ah. This is an ah back here. So those are two features. A distinguishing factor of vowels is that their airflow is usually laminar. Ah, I did not know that. Yeah, you can have turbulent airflow as opposed to laminar airflow as a physical distinction between a vowel and a consonant. Interesting. You say a fricative. What about other types of consonants? Are all consonants? I mean, I'd imagine it's probably not that all are necessarily turbulent. I'm imagining maybe a ha might be. Would that be turbulent inside of your throat, and like laminar by the time it gets out of your mouth, or?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of asterisks here, as you might imagine.
Uh-huh.
But like for the generalization is that vowels kind of the airstream is laminar, and that kind of lets you have this resonance that you can hear different, pitches and harmonics. But you have a couple consonants that also have that. So that's the first asterisk, or something like ya, that is not that has a laminar airflow.
Oh, okay.
And then something like a stop, there's no airflow at all. So that's kind of like, it's not that it's consonant because it has
Right.
turbulent airflow, it has no airflow. Something like a nasal, it's diverted to the nose. So, a bunch of asterisks. But if you want to talk about something like za versus ra, or hya versus ya, the difference there is going to be one of turbulence.
Huh. That's cool. I didn't know that. Okay. In addition to heightened backness, there's also roundness, referring to the lips. So, for example, a good example in Chinese would be like e versus ü. Your tongue is in a similar place for both sounds, e and ü, but your lips are rounded in one and not the other, in the latter, not the former. So e, ü. Anybody want to say an ü? Ü. It's you can even vary between the two kind of freely by going e, ü. Good. So that's roundness. And phonation we already talked about. So like voiced versus unvoiced. In the case of English, all vowels are always voiced except when you're whispering. But other languages might distinguish between a voiced and an unvoiced vowel. For example, Japanese does this. Actually, it's not a phonemic difference in the case of Japanese, but it and what that means will be discussed later. But there are unvoiced vowels in Japanese sometimes. And that brings us to the IPA. So we've sort of discussed all of the things on the top and left columns here. We know what all of these words mean, or at least most of them at this point. So the IPA is the International Phonetic Alphabet, and it just defines the actual way to transcribe those sounds. So I've been putting things in like I've been writing down letters to mean things. Those are IPA characters that I'm using to refer to sounds. That's what the IPA is. Anybody want to try in chat real quick? Actually, this is a terrible idea because you don't have the keys for half of these letters, but would anyone want to maybe approximate the transcription of the word France in the IPA? I'll leave it on this chart here. Good. Is a good start. Yeah, so the R, the English letter R in the IPA would really be a trill. So that would be like France. Reverse R, yeah, exactly, yeah. So you want this, yeah, the approximant is the one that we want here. This is this is not France, how would you transcribe that? I'm trying to think of it myself.
It is the AE, but in most English dialects, AE vowel before N becomes messed up. So it's like France would be the untensed version.
France. Okay, interesting. France. We need an N-ish thing and an S-ish thing. Any guesses as to what those are? N, but like slightly approximate. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like, how would you make it slightly approximate?
I mean, like,
France.
there's like this. Wait, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. So France, when you say France, I don't think your tongue actually touches anything when you say the N. So it's kind of
France.
like how in Japanese, when you say sometimes doesn't touch, the tongue doesn't touch anything. I think it's kind of like that.
Actually,
France,
well, I think in
like while I
Japanese,
say France, yeah.
it's a uvular consonant. So like for example, if you say Nihon, if you maybe it's a question of emphasis, but I'm pretty sure in the back, like your tongue will touch your uvula on the N in Nihon, the final N, that is.
You can say it like that, but you can also say Nihon. I just didn't touch anything. Nihon.
Nihonjin.
Nihonjin.
Nihonjin desu.
Like in some cases it touches, in some cases it doesn't. So but like in
Yeah.
France, like at
Okay.
least while I say France, I don't think I touched anything.
This is like 3 layers down the iceberg, by the way. There is something going on here that is real, but we may want to come back to this.
Okay, I'm curious what you have to say, because I don't know what it would be, but
in the words that technically speaking, the phonetic realization of N following a vowel in English is sometimes just nasalization of the preceding vowel, which is why you don't, if you pronounce it a certain way, that you don't get the tongue touching the tip, because it's not actually N, it's nasalization that's on the previous vowel. So in this case, it's actually more like the original French France.
France. Right. Yeah, I guess in that case you wouldn't have there's no contact. France. In my case, I do. I'm pretty sure I do actually make the contact. France. Although I'm trying to make sure that I'm not just misanalyzing the consonant that comes after it. France. I think I do produce the actual proper N. So if it were me writing it, it would just be NS. F, like F, reverse R, A, like A sound, AE, the AE looking thing, NS. That would be my English. What about winter? Any takers? Actually, I should have. This is terrible. This is a bad example, because I didn't even like give you the letters for the vowels. We'll skip winter. We're low on time anyway. Okay, so that was phonetics. What about phonology? Phonology is, instead of asking the question of the actual nature of the sounds themselves, we're more concerned with the way that a language organizes them, or how the speakers of a language think about those sounds, or how they relate them to each other. So another way to think of this is like, where are the dividing lines that separate sounds from each other for a certain language? So you might have noticed that so far I've been writing things in between like brackets of differing types. So for example, like the slashy brackets are like in some things that I've written them in slashy brackets, and in some things I've written the square brackets. And that's the difference between short and long transcription, which is, the idea here is that the language in question has some sort of underlying representation of the word, but in the process of actually producing the sound and having it go from your brain to your actual mouth muscles, there are changes that get applied after the fact, and it'll be realized in a way that doesn't necessarily represent precisely the underlying phonemes. So when I say phonology, we're interested in the phonemes. We're interested in the underlying representation of these sounds, as opposed to the way that they realize from the mouth. So just another example with transcription. In English, I mentioned that we don't care about aspiration. So if you wanted to transcribe in long transcription, which is, I didn't say this explicitly yet, but in short, we're writing down the representations, and in long we're usually we're writing our interpretation of what the sounds really are. So for short, you would only write existing English phonemes. We're taking for a given that we know what that set is currently. But so like I'm asserting here that k, a, and t are English phonemes. But in a long transcription, you might write you might explicitly annotate that the k is aspirated. So air is getting pushed out of my mouth when I say cat. The k, there's air that's flowing out there. So and then it's also specifying that I think in this case it's actually cat, where there's no final airflow. I think that's what this mark means. Yeah. So a long transcription often it's more information. It doesn't have to be, but often you're putting more symbols in to more minutely document the specific sounds that are produced, although that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Anybody want to try just for fun and read this transcription of an English sentence?
How can you drop an egg from 50 stories onto cement without it cracking?
Yeah. What about the second one? Somebody else?
Let's see. Throw it as hard as you can. Cement is pretty hard to crack.
Good. Okay. Perfect. So okay, I've asserted the existence of this thing called a phoneme. So like, what actually is that? Trying to figure out how to start this. So like, in a language, maybe I'll just go through, basically just walk through this flowchart. This is sort of a set of questions that you can ask to determine if something is a phoneme in opposition to a different sound, if the two are in what's called free variation, or if they're allophones of the same phoneme. So a very simple example of how you might argue that two sounds are different phonemes would be like, in the case of B and D, anyone maybe can you just think of a simple argument to convince me that those two are different? Not appealing to phonetics, not appealing to the manner in which the sound is actually produced, but in the way that we think of it as English speakers.
There's words that start with B and words that start with D that we can tell apart.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm bad, I'm dad. Perfect. So bid versus did, or bad versus dad. So like, those have two different meanings. So like, these two things must be representing different underlying units of information. And for that reason, we can assert that they're different phonemes. That's called a minimal pair. B and D would, in this context, be a minimal pair. So you can also have, you also want to ask, these are questions that you want to ask, to be clear. I'm walking through the questions of this flowchart. So we asked if substituting one sound for the other changes meaning, which is the same as there being a minimal pair. Now, what about complementary distribution? What does that mean? That means that two of them never occur in the same environment. So an example, oh yeah, I put a picture in here. This is like what you should be doing with your hand when you cover your mouth during aspiration. So in the case of the P in pit versus the P in spit in English, in the former example, the P, you'll notice if you do that with your hand and say it out loud, remember, muting is illegal. You have to unmute while you're saying pit, 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 spit, spit, spit. You'll notice that the pit P is aspirated, as opposed to the spit P is unaspirated. No air comes out after it. So the question then becomes, okay, well, what's going on here? Like, is that can we think of a minimal pair between ba and pa? And the answer is, in English, you won't be able to. However, if you look at the place that it exists within the word, you'll notice that anytime that you see it after an S, for example, like within the same consonant, the P will not be aspirated. So these two, in this case, are two ways that the phoneme, the underlying phoneme of P, can be realized depending on context. So in this case, they're not different phonemes. Yeah, so you can call these allophones. That's the fancy term for it. Oops, I didn't mean to show you that. So another example is I versus I. Oops, and I also used the wrong brackets. These should be square brackets. Sorry about that. So those should be I and I. So, for example, can anyone tell me what the same environment? They're called environments, like the surrounding letters and stuff. Zbit. Would it be differentiable in English? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, can anyone ever differentiate between them? Because like those obviously aren't actual things that occur in English. So zbit.
I guess like in the way that people would usually talk, it would be hard to have a voiced consonant like Z and then not voice the next fricative.
Yeah, so okay. Right. Usually a syllable is constructed from like an initial consonant, then a vowel, then like a final consonant or cluster of consonants. And I say consonant, I really mean there are technical terms for this. There's like the onset and the coda. Onset. Am I missing something? I might be missing a part there. Onset, nucleus, and coda. And so the nucleus is basically the vowel. Usually the vowel in most examples. It's not always a vowel, but here, let me blah 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 blah. Yeah. So a syllable has an onset, a nucleus, and a coda. The nucleus is usually a vowel, and vowels in most languages are usually voiced. So my guess as to why that would probably not happen, spit, is because you're now forcing that the speaker starts voicing within, like at the beginning of the syllable. When it changes to a P after the Z, they stop voicing, then they start voicing when the vowel begins, and then they stop voicing again at the end. So that sounds like a lot of work, and that's my guess as to why you don't actually see that in practice. At least in the case of English. I'm not asserting that there's no language that does that. Bzz, pzz. Bzz versus pzz. I don't know. The thing is, you're already breaking from English like phonetactics, which is syllable construction. So it's hard to argue as to whether or not English really makes a distinguishing. It makes a, how would you say it? Like a English cares, if English cares. Yeah, arbitrary constructions. I mean, you can often. I don't know if I would say it's useless. But yeah, it's not a good way of analyzing the language as it is, you know. Anyway, where were we? I versus I. Can anyone tell me what the difference in environment is? I'm asserting to you that these are allophones of the same phoneme, at least in my dialect of English. So can you come up with an example of when it would be realized as I versus I? When would something be an I versus an I? Anyone? No takers? Can anyone come up with some examples? Just blurt out some words that have either of those in them.
I guess something like lie would be the first one, or something like maybe like pike would be more like the second.
Yeah, lie and pike. So can you think of an example that, like, for example, what happens if you try to think of a minimal pair between the two, where, like, in one case you have the former and in one case you have the latter? I assert you won't be able to find one, but maybe you'll be able to get close. Cry and might, yeah, that's spot on. But I think if you attempt to find a minimal pair, you might find some interesting stuff. Zai says bye. Zai does not say bye. No? Nobody? Can't think of any examples of schwa e. So I'll give you some. Ice. Yeah, plight. Plight is a good one. Plied, plight. Yeah, so what's the difference between those two? That's perfect. What else phonetically is different between those two examples?
Well, there's the T and the D, so
right.
It's a different voicing at the end.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
Other than that,
perfect.
It's a slightly different vowel sound.
Yeah. So by analyzing the environment that the two sample sounds can be found in, you can determine what causes the phoneme to be realized differently. So in this case, these two are the same phoneme. They're allophones of the same phoneme. However, in the presence of a voiced consonant that follows it, it will be I, as opposed to in the presence of an unvoiced consonant that follows it, it will be I. And then I'm sure it does something if there's no consonant, but I'm not sure what it is. I think it's still I. I think in the case of nothing, it's I. So, yeah, and, I should disclaim everything that I'm saying with this probably all depends on your dialect of English. So I'm an American English speaker, so, I don't know if any of this applies in Britain or anywhere else. But, yeah, so, I'm in Canada where you also get ow, oh, yeah, okay. A boot, yeah. A boat. Am I saying that right? Kind of ish. A boat. Yeah. So examples of this is ice versus eyes, right? This versus z causes it to be I versus I, or rather I versus I. Ice, eyes, right, ride, bite, bind, fight, although there's an N in there, which is not a perfect minimal pair, but close. Fight, find, yeah, but I guess in this one isn't either, but you can see how the final the voicing, the phonation of the final consonant or the consonant after the vowel will paint the phoneme in one way or the other. One interesting thing is, I noticed this while I was writing this up. I'm from Maryland. I'm pretty sure Geico, I'm saying that in a very specific way, is from Baltimore. I think most people say Geico, but I've only ever heard it pronounced Geico, and I think that might be a Maryland thing. Anyway, sigh and sight. Yeah, that's good. Of course, in the second one, sigh, sight. Yeah, so that's the difference between there being an unvoiced consonant that follows it as opposed to no consonant at all that follows it, which would also differ. So sigh and side, sigh versus side, where the vowel is produced the same between not having a following consonant versus having a voiced consonant after. So yeah, so like it seems like I is the default if there's nothing following it. You say Geico from New Jersey. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I say Geico, which seems to break the rule. Interestingly enough. So I think that might just be a Marylandism or something. Anyway, beside the point. It doesn't, but I can tell you why maybe later. Okay, I'll take you up on that. Okay, so those are we've talked about two possible ending states of this, is like having two separate phonemes in the case of B and D. Oh, interesting. To be clear, you're saying schwa e, not like what you wrote there is Geico, not Geico.
Oh, I meant Geico.
Okay, yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay, anyway, so we talked about belonging to two separate phonemes versus allophones of the same phoneme. The third case here is free variation, which is basically, I think tomato is a bad example, but I think maybe I think this is a proper example in British English, or received pronunciation if you want to use the fancy term. Tomato versus tomato, because in my dialect no one ever says tomato. But a good example for American English would be either versus either, or either versus either. Again, that has to do with the former I versus I, but either being E as opposed to either I. No, but there is a minimal pair. Wait, hold on. I think that's a bad example. Yeah, because there are, sorry, okay, nix that. I lied on that slide. That's not true. Because substituting one sound for the other can change meaning for some words, and for that reason, like E versus I are not the same phoneme. So, okay, ignore this. What is an example of, Mega, do you have an example of like free variation in English? In American English, at least?
Yeah, so I mean, you can talk about syllable final stops where, like, whether it's released or not, like,
Okay.
generally it's unreleased. So if I say something like cap, I'm not going to have a release after the P, but there might be instances, maybe context or something like that, where I say cap, and you probably can't hear that, but in that case, I'm letting some air come out of my lips after I finish the word cap. So, same thing with rack versus rack. I'm going to emphasize rack. So
Yeah.
that would be an
Yep.
example of free variation, because it's you have one phoneme presumably being realized in two different ways, and you can't really tell what's going on. And like, if the environment that determines your allophone, which sound you use, is like the time of day and how you're feeling, like the weather, you can say that that's free variation. It's like,
Yep.
Non-linguistic factors essentially.
Okay. Just want to confirm, did I confuse anybody with either versus either? I think that's a bad example. Does everybody follow the point? Is data versus data. So, okay. Yeah, the answer is no, but let's figure out why it's no. So data versus data, you would then ask just the sound itself, a versus a. Is there an example of two words that you can think of that have a versus a substituted into different places? So I'm trying to think of, like, I'm just saying things in my head, like pat, pate. Those aren't words. Wat, wait. You could argue wat is some goofy way of saying what, but past paste, good, perfect. Yeah, so past and paste being a minimal pair means that a and a would be two different examples of like two different like that's a minimal pair between a and a. So
I think
yep.
I think the confusion here is, and this is just based above the slide there, is that to say something's in free variation. It's not the word. It's not saying that
Yeah.
a word has
Yeah.
different like ways of pronouncing it. It's that a sound has two different ways of pronouncing it. So this applies to the sound under description. So it's not that you want to come up with one word that can be pronounced in different ways. It's that you want to come up with one sound that is pronounced in different ways, and that sounds kind of weird because it's like, okay, it's like a
Yes.
sound is a sound. How can it sound differently? But it's right. It's we're talking about this phoneme. It's like this unit, this abstract thing that somehow our brains treat as the same thing, but sometimes we decided to choose one sound over that.
Right, and tying that back into this flowchart here, basically we're saying another way of rewriting this with a little bit more detail is, does substituting one sound for the other in all contexts change, or in any context change meaning? So in the case of and a, pass versus paste would be an example of, that's going to always, or that there is at least one minimal pair example, so that would be two separate phonemes. As opposed to if it is always substitutable one for the other, for example, like the p versus like stop p, like stop versus stop at the end of a word, that would be free variation because in all words it's never going to change the meaning. Yeah, so that's free variation. Okay.
Just the Quark give a
Yeah.
Which was I'm going to emphasize the first time, straight versus straight, which you may find it doesn't change the meaning.
It doesn't change the meaning, but straight. Wait, are you saying that is free variation?
I'm saying that, and yeah, so maybe this is a little confused. It's not free variation on the overall sound because you have like those are phonemes. You can find minimal pairs for sa and sha, but in that context,
in that environment,
there is
it seems to be
like if you have s or sh versus before it stops. So sta, like these contexts, you're never going to in native English words. You're not sta or sta. So, and this may be confusing people more instead of less, because you can get down into the nitty gritty of like an environment. Like the sounds can be in free variation here in this environment, but they may be they may be phonemic in another word. I just thought that was good to kind of hear. Is like you can. Yeah, actually, maybe I'll retract that. I did really like that example for different reasons, maybe, but I think it may be confusing. So yeah, I don't know. Ask me about it. Something. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll just move on. But yes, the interesting thing to think about there is like this in straight versus the sh in straight. In like usually those are two different phonemes, but yeah, so it gets a little bit weird because in this case that is a general trend that applies to that specific environment, and within that environment it can be a minimal pair. By the way, I'm kind of just repeating what you're saying just to make sure I understand it. Let me know if I'm getting anything wrong, but also because I think the audio doesn't come through always. So I'm hoping I can maybe make that clear for anybody who missed. Okay, so okay, game. Can you pair the language to the phoneme chart? This is a consonant phoneme chart, so languages will have their like a chart of consonant phonemes. Can you figure out which one's which? Now that you know how a phoneme is defined, you might be able to figure out what the phonemes are in a given language that you may or may not know. Anyone want to take a stab? Mega, you're allowed to try like maybe you can get some of the hard ones at the end when no one else has any ideas. Okay. Unless no one attempts. Anybody?
So I'm gonna take a wild guess at French.
Okay.
I know a little bit of French, but I don't know much phonetics. So I'm gonna guess it's one of either the bottom middle or the bottom left.
bottom middle or bottom left?
Maybe I'm just completely off here.
I wrote these a while ago and I forgot which one was which. Okay, it isn't either of those. Sorry. Although, there are things about this one that are French, like that are represented in French, but this is not. This unfortunately not French. I had to do a double take.
I'm just kind of looking for the back of throat sort of R sound, like F.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's a good thing to look for.
So building on that, you can pronounce this sound. Do you have an intuition as to where in the mouth it's being articulated?
Yeah, if you can figure out where it's articulated, you know where to look for within the chart.
Well, it's pretty far back, so I think it's uvular.
Yep.
Some of these things don't have anything uvular, so that kind of narrows it down.
Okay.
Two of them I already guessed. Is it the left middle?
No, it's not.
Wait, did I miss something?
It's not left middle.
Well, here's what you can also look at is that if you're aware of, basically the question is, does French have any other uvular sounds? If it doesn't, then that chart in the left middle has more than one. So that kind of would eliminate that on that ground. So basically, can you think of any other uvular sounds in French? And if not, then you should be looking for a similar one.
Zai, can you get Japanese?
I'll try. I looked at it a little bit late, so.
All good.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with Carrie, by the way.
Oh, hi, Carrie.
Hi, we're both in Japan right now.
I know, I'm jealous.
I'm looking at all these like linguistic grids, and you know, I just joined, so there's a lot of like information overload, but I'm slowly piecing it together.
Okay. I can't believe you're calling me from Zero Ping. I would be out partying if I were you.
That's true. Well, it's like 9 a.m. Well, it's 10 a.m. here, so like
Okay.
no parties at 10 a.m.
There should be. You could be the party. Come on, which one of these screams to you the language that you hear when you walk outside? I'm kidding, that shouldn't be obvious. All right, Mega, you're allowed to join in. Can you eliminate a couple?
Yeah. So so if we're looking for French, we're right that there's a uvular sound that you should be looking for. The unfortunate thing here is that the French chart is merged velar and uvular, so it isn't exactly clear that in that top middle one, that little capital upside down R is the uvular fricative that you were talking about. That
That's
other
it.
distinctly French thing you notice in that chart is that little upside down H. That's the sound in a word like eat, which is basically the consonant form of the vowel. So those are kind of two more distinctly French sounds that you will look for. But you have the right idea of looking for a sound that you know is distinct and then trying to place it. There just happen to be a couple other languages on here that confuse the uvular.
Yep. Another thing that would catch my eye here is, and this can be considered a hint for some other languages that are on the list. The ñ, the palatal N, is a common pattern among Romance languages descended from Latin. So use that knowledge to your advantage. So I'm gonna knock this one out.
Okay,
That's
I
French.
have a guess on Japanese.
Yep.
Is it bottom right?
Is this Japanese? That is not Japanese.
Oh, it's not? Wait.
It's not Japanese.
But I just removed everything else. What?
Oh, wait,
Maybe
if we're process of elimination, wait. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
wait, maybe it's top right then. But there's palatal N. No, it's not palatal N. Okay. I need to look at it more.
How about English? Can anybody get English?
Well, English has to be bottom middle, right?
This one?
Yeah,
No.
maybe.
No, not English.
What?
Well, I'm
Why?
gonna
What
say
makes you
that-
saying
Wait.
what makes you say that's English?
I'm thinking that English has the th sound like the,
Yes.
and that isn't that shown with like a theta. Yeah. So bottom middle doesn't have a theta.
This
does
is
it?
a phi. That's not a theta. Sorry, is it too small? Here, zoom
Right,
in.
so it's like left, maybe?
Yeah, I was thinking like upper. Well, I saw that upper left and middle left had thetas, but I didn't look closer into
Ooh.
it.
Oh no!
But the upper
you've,
left one
you've
has,
stepped on another.
Yeah, so it has to be middle left.
You've stepped on another landmine here of confusion. English is rather unique in having like the and the sounds, but I actually have 3 on here. This one, and this one, which all have the and the sounds. So which one's which? This one here, this the and the pair, this the and the pair. That's a hint. So this is, in this one we have a difference between the, and in this one we have the versus the, but in this case we have the being contrasted with ta and da.
Well, then it's definitely not the top one
Yeah, it's not this
because
one.
that one only has one of the ths.
Correct.
I'm gonna guess the one on the right.
Justify to me that it's not this one.
Could you like zoom in on that a little bit?
Yes,
We're
sorry.
on our phones, so.
Oh, yep. Sorry about that. How's that?
There's just like sla and like ra, and those are not in English, I think.
Yes.
Ra, that thing.
Yeah, there's no ra in English, correct. Okay, so we've gotten rid of that one. So English must be this then, and that's correct. So English is out of the list.
Oh, hooray!
All right. What next? Or tap out, give up. Mega, you get each time they get one, you get to get one, Mega.
Wait, for the tonal languages, would that be shown here in any way, or is
Yeah,
that
this
like
is-
not really considered?
This is
For
just a consonant inventory. So tones are called usually tonemes, which is just in my opinion, just a funny. I like that word, but yeah, tones are phonemes. I would call a tone a phoneme. Would you agree, Mega? Just confirming. I think tones are phonemes. They're suprasegmental phonemes, but they're phonemes nonetheless? Question mark. Anyway, I think that's the case. Yeah. Okay. These are specifically consonant inventories, so I haven't made any comments about vowels. There's plenty more depth to the phonology of a language than just what is represented in this chart, but this is just the set of consonants that are present. So yeah, no, tonemes or tones would not be expressed on any of these charts here that you see.
Okay, now I'm sure that bottom middle is Japanese.
Okay, why?
Everything makes sense. The bilabial fricative is the hu sound.
Yes.
Yeah. But like, yeah, and then everything makes sense, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's correct.
But like alveopalatal N is kind of weird, so.
Alveopalatal N. Like nya, like a cat's meow, like nya would be an example of that, I think.
Wait, I was thinking with Japanese though, the R is like a tap. Like I don't quite remember, but like is the liquid R just like a R in English?
Oh no, it's a tap.
Oh, that R is a
This is
tap.
a
So when it
this
looks
is
like a
a
lowercase r, that is a tap.
this is a tap, yeah. No, sorry, that's a trill question mark. Hold on, I'm gonna go back
That
to
is
the
written as a trill.
That is
and
written as a trill.
We're getting into the thing where a lot of times people write their phonemes with the simplest characters, so it's easiest to write an R with an R instead of like a tap symbol or a upside down R symbol. And this works in something like Japanese because like there's only one R sound. There's nothing else it could be. So you're supposed to just look at that and be like, okay, this is pronounced this way because I know about the phonology of the language and how it's realized. But that doesn't help. Basically, what that means is very often we need to know about how things are pronounced in the language specifically to map that phonology to the sounds. Make sense?
That does make sense.
So sometimes in English, people will use the trill sound to represent R, even though that's not phonetically accurate, but phonologically it works as an analysis.
Any other takers? Mega, you got. I think you got 2 now. You get to eliminate 2.
Wait, I wanted to say one thing I noticed is that there's a lot of trills. I think only one box here left doesn't have a trill.
Only one box left doesn't have a trill. Okay, this one has a trilled R. This one does not. This one does. This one
Oh, yeah.
does. This one does. Yes. Okay. What are we getting from that?
Because I don't know many of these languages that well except for Mandarin Chinese, and I think Chinese doesn't have any trills of any kind, so
Bingo.
I'm gonna guess
You're correct.
lower right is Chinese.
Yeah. I think a
Oh,
bigger.
okay, awesome. I'm happy.
Yeah, good. A bigger giveaway, in my opinion, here. You can play this game by the overall sounds, but you can also just kind of look at the structure of the chart. This 3x3 box here is what a lot of like English speakers think of as stereotypically sounding Chinese. So this is, let me see if I get this right. Hold on, I have to orient myself here. I think. So that's what this 3x3 box is. Like
I
that's
think you swapped the aspirated ones and the not aspirated ones. It should
Did
be like the last one.
Please, we've just.
I think it's like this. You think it's swapped?
Well, one thing I remember is that, like, sometimes people would call like certain dialects of Mandarin Chinese like tongue rolling because there's like their zhi, zhi, shi, zi, zi, zi. Like there's just a lot of kind of keeping the tongue in the back of the mouth. So that must be 3 of these in the grid.
Yeah, those are the retroflex ones.
A retroflex.
Yeah, that's the word for that. Correct. Yeah, that's what are these 3. Yeah, top to bottom. Yep. 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 In the opinion, that lines up to what I'm seeing. Cool, but good. That's 1 down. 1 more down. What else? May have misread my mouse. That's okay. Yeah, it might be delayed. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I wasn't going top to bottom.
Wild
I
guess
feel like
here on something I don't know.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that Arabic has some lateral things, and I see lateral only in the top left.
Only in the top left.
Or
Oh
am I
no!
missing something?
Oh no! No, yeah, you are. That's not the top left.
Oh, okay.
I think the one mentioned was the L with kind of a line going through the middle. So maybe it's the
That one?
There it is. This is Arabic. Yeah, this one's Arabic here, and that's the L that I was talking about. However, they didn't write it on this chart. They contrasted it with L as being an emphatic L. I can't speak enough to Arabic phonology to be able to explain why they did that. But yes, it is a lateral L. I think phonetic, or like in terms of the actual characteristics of the sound, yes, I believe it is lateral, but that's not the way that they analyzed it and produced the chart. That's not the way that they cut up the sounds, or that's not the way that presumably they believe Arabic speakers imagine the sounds. But yes, this one's Arabic here, and that L is a dead giveaway. They also have a lot of the sounds that I mentioned earlier as being in the back of the throat. So for example, the pharyngeal ha, the ha sound is here. The a, the ain in Arabic. That's what these two are. This is a ha, and a ra. So those are all very Arabic sounding sounds, if you will. Oh, and the uvular qa. So those are some ways that you could figure it out. Cool. We're left with Indonesian, Hindi, and Spanish. Anybody? Any takers? Mega? Help?
Yeah, so I'm going to eliminate Indonesian for using the same reasons why I want to eliminate Indonesian, which is that I think that it doesn't have any particularly interesting sounds. You'll notice, and this is going to be a hint for the future, right? You'll notice that on the left, those two ones have like kind of, maybe not larger. On the bottom it's larger, but on the top there's these kind of like palatal sounds going on. There's these like different R's going on. There's a dental fricative on the bottom. You've got like all of these different phonation types going on. So those are like, different sounds. But Indonesian has a very kind of cross-linguistically more standard inventory. There's not really any sounds that pop out as more marked cross-linguistically. So that would point towards the top right being Indonesian.
Correct. We're down to 2.
I think Spanish is top left because it's got both the flat R and the trill R.
Yeah, that's the difference between pero and perro. Dog versus butt. So, good. And that leaves Hindi as the bottom left. Hindi being known for its distinction, its 8-way distinction between like the T and D sounds being like dental versus retroflex, aspirated versus not aspirated, and also voiced versus unvoiced. That's what this big slab in the middle here, this like big 8x8 box, for example. So that's Hindi. Okay, I'm gonna put this slide back together if you don't mind real fast. Okay. So just for fun, there are some extreme cases. This is Abkhaz. I'm not sure how you say the language name. I think Mega has actually studied it. I believe this is the language, or argued to be...
Exonym.
What's that?
It's an exonym, so I think in the language itself it's called Abstra.
Abswa. I guess that's what that is right there, which I didn't know what that meant. But there you go. It has a very, very large consonant inventory. I don't think it's a world's biggest, but 2 vowels, which I believe is the world's smallest vowel inventory as far as I'm aware. Mega probably knows a lot more about this than I do. But usually, just this is a good example of highlighting a usual trend where the amount of consonant phonemes you have and the amount of vowels that you have usually are opposite to each other. English has I would say a slightly smaller than average consonant inventory, but has a lot of vowels. There's a lot of distinction between vowels in English that don't happen in other languages. For example, 5 vowel systems are very common. Specifically like a, e, I, o, u, That's a very common like set of 5 vowels for a language to have, but English has like, depending on your dialect, maybe even like 17. So this is just highlighting sort of a trend between the two of them. But we can get more cursed than that. Also, I tried using this play thing, although, yeah, it doesn't seem to want to play. I had a little audio clip of this particular language being, this is a Khoisan language from Namibia. And here's the whole phoneme chart for it. Both of these tables. These are just the non-click consonants, and these are the click consonants. Don't ask me how to pronounce any of these because I don't know. But yeah, you can see there's a whole ton of different clicks, and I wish I could play it for you, but you can look it up if you want. So that is the extreme in terms of how big it is. Perhaps, I guess, maybe Mega disagrees with me. Oh yeah, no. That's the top one that he linked there. On the left, Rotokas. I'm not sure how you pronounce the language either, but that is, I believe it's spoken in. I'm trying to remember. I think it's an island in. It's a. Is it Bougainville? Yeah. Okay. So an island in the like Southwest Pacific. They have a very small consonant inventory. Okay, so I think I'm probably gonna end it soon, maybe. Not sure where. Languages change over time. A couple of examples of how this happens in English is like historically, the th versus the distinction, as in like the th in the as opposed to the th in think. One is voiced and one is not. Those used to be a pair of two sounds that were allophones and only differed depending on their environment. So for example, if I'm not mistaken, I think the was intervocalic, like it would be intervocalic in between two vowels. It would be the, as opposed to th in the case of not being in between two vowels. However, that pair of what are they called? Allophones. That pair of allophones became a true phoneme pair over time, such that now the and th are not phonemes. You can't say think, for example, like I think that something, or like the cat went to the bar, the cat went to the bar. I don't know why I'm talking about cats going to bars either, but hat and hue is an interesting example of one that I've heard to be predicted to possibly diverge in the coming future in American English. That is the H in hat and the H in hue. This is the word like hue as in color. If you say those two phonemes alone, they sound very different acoustically speaking, like versus like they sound very different, and the way that you pronounce them is very different from each other. So I've read people analyzing these as potentially going to diverge, although of course that's just prediction, so I don't know if that, you can't treat that as necessarily true. But yeah, there are rules that define how this happens, and some are more likely than others, and that can be used to analyze languages of the past or reconstruct them. So for example, like button becomes button, mountain becomes mountain. This is a part of a general trend of sounds usually going backwards further in the mouth over time until they disappear. That is a common trend across languages. Bottle of water, yeah, exactly. Okay, so we talked about vowels and consonants. Some languages also have what's called suprasegmental features. That literally just means above the segment, so something that is not within the actual phonemes themselves, but is conveyed by some other means. The two big examples of this are pitch, accent, and tone. So in Chinese, depending on the tone that you say the word with, tone in this case specifically meaning like the way that your pitch changes within the course of a single syllable. that will be a phonemic difference between two different words. So, for example, in Chinese, like ma versus ma versus ma versus ma versus ma, those can all be, for example, inserted as minimal pairs. The words alone could be translated differently, as you can see on this picture. So that's what tone looks like. Pitch accent is usually a pitch, either high or low, is assigned to each syllable. So tone, usually we're talking about within the syllable there is a change in pitch. So for example, ma is a rising pitch, whereas in Japanese, each syllable usually only has either a low or high pitch, and that can be used phonemically to distinguish two words. For example, ame versus ame, you can hear which one has the pitch accent, which one has the higher pitch, distinguishes between rain and candy in that example. At least in standard Japanese. That's not true across all of Japan, but in Tokyo that would hold. And stress accent. Stress accented languages have instead of necessarily a pitch that distinguishes which that distinguishes between words, you would have the stress, which is some combination usually of pitch or volume or some number of other features. These are a couple examples from Filipino, which has a lot of stress accenting. So baka versus baka, maybe versus cow. Plenty of examples of that in Filipino. Spanish has them as well, although they're, I think, less frequent. So esta, meaning like this one, versus está, to be, in the third person. Okay. Just a quick vote real quick. Do you guys want to continue? Are y'all into this? Because I did write some slides also on phonotactics, but I also would not feel bad if you left because it's already been 2 hours. Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think me and Zai might be heading out because, like, the group might just be going out to town.
Hell yeah!
But
yeah, I'm not gonna hold
I
you
saw
here
the-
in nerd class.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad I got to see this. Like, this was an introduction to my day. I saw the next slide was like, I'm guessing sounds that are kind of like technically banned in English. Like I saw like tlay, and that's you never have T and L together.
Yeah, so phonotactics is about the way that a syllable is constructed. So usually that has to do with, like, what general trends can happen in terms of how much airflow is occurring throughout the syllable, but also, you can get specific about it and say, oh yeah, these two letters can't happen simultaneously within the onset of a syllable in the case of tlay, although all of those phonemes are present in English. So like brol, ngah, pnt, tlay, like we all know all of those sounds, but the way that the syllable is constructed is sorry, I lied. I think the way I was going to say this slide is one of these examples is plausible, that being brol, but and the other three are not. So for example, in English, H would always be at the beginning, and ng can only happen at the end. Whereas in Indonesian, this is totally fine, to start with a nga and end in a ha. Ngah, that's totally normal sounding in Indonesian. Yeah, anyway, that's what phonotactics is about. So, but yeah, feel free to go. Have fun in Zero Ping. I wish I were there.
I'm sure we'll have one soon, but yeah, thanks for this lesson, To Swap. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya. I guess everybody's gonna go now. That's okay. I'm not. That's not a problem. It's late anyway. I'm gonna kill the bot.